Let's bring in Zach Anders now to the conversation. He joins me. Zach, good to see you. All right, what do we know? Zach, it just turned 3 a.m. there where you are. This blast at the hospital happening there late at night. We know no Western journalist has yet been able to cross the border from Israel into Gaza. Since this war began, it's been a total blockade. Get us up to speed if you could.
Absolutely historical night, Andrew, here in the in the Gaza Strip and in southern Israel. This hospital strike was immense. We were actually able to speak to some IDF spokesperson who was able to relay some of the information that has been passed on throughout the night, but they wanted to confirm again to us that this was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket that failed. That is what they're saying at this hour, that it was not a rocket or a missile that came from Israeli forces. Now, one of the questions we had for them, was this a rocket that was intercepted by the Iron Dome? Because this is a very small area again. Gaza Strip is roughly the size of Philadelphia. The Iron Dome can intercept rockets over Palestinian territory in the Gaza Strip. They're telling us again that this was a failed rocket that came down and tragically struck this hospital. They said that they saw it on their drones that were over the Gaza Strip at the time and that it landed in the parking lot. Now, thousands of injured are in these hospitals. Thousands more are outside because they believe these hospitals are safe. They are refuge from the Israeli strikes that are peppering the city all around them. So many of the people that are around this hospital, many of the dead, are women and children who, again, were seeking refuge in this area to try and avoid strikes in other places. So right now, we're being told that it was not an Israeli strike from the Israeli Air Force or from a missile fired from all of the military equipment that we see dotted along the southern border right now with the Gaza Strip today. We see a massive amount of equipment that is staged, preparing for this ground invasion of the Gaza Strip. But again, they're telling us this was not the Israelis. This was a failed Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket. Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas, two in the same in the eyes of the Israelis and in the eyes of the United States. The State Department lists both groups as terrorist organizations.
You know, Zach, we do have a live picture now there in Gaza outside one of these other hospitals that so many of the injured have now been taken. So many of the dead had been taken. Yet another hospital in the Gaza Strip. I just want to show some of our viewers that we do have this live picture still. But Zach, you talk about how this has reverberated not only in the region, but for the wider war itself, because this summit with foreign leaders, with Jordan, with the Palestinian Authority, with Egypt, that's now off as President Biden is literally in the air on his way to Israel. And then we're getting some reports there in Beirut, Lebanon, especially outside the U.S. Embassy. What's going on there?
Well, I've spoken to several of my sources, one in Amman, Jordan, that says there are protests outside the embassy there. Another in Istanbul, Turkey, also protests with hundreds taking to the streets. And a good friend of mine, a freelance journalist as well, Hunter Williamson, is outside the American embassy in Beirut. He's been sending me some of these images, which I believe you can see now. They're burning an auxiliary building near the compound to the embassy. They were dispersing these individuals earlier, the protesters, with water cannons and tear gas. The situation there appears to be deteriorating rapidly, and that's a major concern. Lebanon is a major concern. It's on the northern border with Israel, and it's where Hezbollah, another group that aims to target Israelis, is teetering on the brink of getting involved in this fight. There have been border skirmishes, there have been deaths, there have been journalists that have been killed on that border covering the skirmishes with Hezbollah and IDF Israeli forces. This situation is a powder keg and has the potential to erupt and involve multiple players that stretch across Syria and Iran. And right now, with this strike on the hospital, and tomorrow, Hamas calling for an international day of rage. The concern at this hour is that the other players who have sat on the sidelines for the most part will in the morning or right now as we speak be mobilizing, being prepared to involve themselves in this war. And we have multiple fronts that the Israelis will be fighting. The American carrier groups are just off the coast in the Mediterranean. They have pledged their support to the Israeli cause. This could erupt into a much broader regional conflict, and within hours we could see the consequences of that.
Yeah, and of course there's a report in the Wall Street Journal saying that, you know, if Hezbollah there in Lebanon gets even more involved, that potentially U.S. Officials and troops might have to intervene. Of course, we don't really know what that means at this point in time. But Zach, let's get back though to this horrible and ghastly hospital attack there in Gaza, because from what I understand, hospitals, places like this there in Gaza, yes, they operate as hospitals, but they also operate as shelters for a lot of these Gazans who are displaced to go seek safety while they are waiting to evacuate to wherever. Do I have that right? Because they were being told the hospitals would be safe.
Exactly. They've been told the hospitals would be safe. The Israelis, on the other hand, have been telling the staff at these hospitals that they need to evacuate their patients. Now, the largest hospital in Gaza City ran out of diesel fuel for their generators. They're out of electricity. There is completely lights out there right now. This is another hospital that had actually seen the effects of an Israeli strike. They had been there was some damage at this particular hospital before this rocket or explosive fell out of the sky and landed in the parking lot. So these were people that were outside the hospital because the inside is just overflowing with the injured, with the dead, with so many victims of what has already happened. And this strike, again, they're telling us that it was a failed rocket, and some of the video that has been geolocated by open source communities, it's unconfirmed, but some of the video does show what appears to be a rocket being fired out of Gaza. And the timing is really important here, because we were experiencing where we're standing Hamas strikes and Palestinian Islamic Jihad strikes at that exact same time. We were under red alert. We were taking cover at the same time about 5-6 hours ago when that blast happened and came down on the hospital. We don't have at this hour any confirmation again of who exactly fired that rocket. Yeah. But the IDF is being very clear to us that it was not them. They're also telling us, and they're issuing several warnings. I should back up a little bit and tell us that they also, when I was on the phone with them less than an hour ago, clarified to me that there is radio intercepts from the PIJ, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, that will prove that it was their rocket. They have not released that yet. It's unclear if they're going to release that radio chatter. But they issued a warning, and they wanted to relay a warning through us.
Yeah, speaking of that,
they wanted to issue a warning through us that if Hezbollah does get involved, they said anyone on any other border, if anyone else gets involved, they are issuing a warning: do not die for the Hamas cause. They're being very stern tonight to the other regional players: do not get involved.
Yeah, to your point, Zach, as well, to your reporting, this Reuters reporter, Emily Rose, says this: the IDF says it will release footage and an intercepted conversation proving Palestinian Islamic Jihad was behind the attack on the Gaza hospital. And so Zach Anders doing such great reporting there in Ashkelon, Israel, not too far from the border there with Gaza. Zach, can't thank you enough. Talk soon. Stay safe.
Thank you, Andrew.